My name is Sophia Chin. I'm 28 years old. For 2 decades, my parents called me the slow one while my sister Victoria collected Yale degrees and inheritance promises. They mocked my dyslexia at dinner tables, excluded me from family decisions, and paid me a fraction of what they paid her. Riverside Hotel, in front of 320 guests, a stranger handed me an envelope that exposed every lie my parents ever told about me. What they didn't know, Grandma had been watching. She saw everything, and she left me something that would flip the entire Chen empire upside down. The Chens were old money Boston, the kind of family whose name appeared on hospital wings and museum plaques. My father, Raymond Chen, ran Chen Development, a commercial real estate empire my grandmother Margaret had built from a single Cambridge office in 1968. By 2024, the company was valued at $88 million. I was born with dyslexia, diagnosed at 7. Letters on pages would swim and rearrange themselves, turning simple sentences into puzzles that took me 3 times longer to solve than other kids. My parents' response wasn't support, it was shame. When I was 12, they hired tutors for Victoria. Violin lessons at the conservatory, French immersion classes, SAT prep with a Yale graduate who charged $380 an hour. When I asked about getting help for my reading, my mother Catherine just sighed. Sophia, we've already spent so much on specialists. At some point, we have to accept that some children just aren't academic. I was 12. I believed her. So I learned to adapt on my own. Audiobooks became my lifeline. I developed a system of visual notes, diagrams, and flowcharts that helped me process information in ways traditional reading couldn't. And every Sunday afternoon, I'd take the train to my grandmother Margaret's apartment in Back Bay, where she'd sit with me for hours, explaining concepts through stories instead of textbooks. Sophie, she told me once, her weathered hand covering mine. You read slower than most, but you see things others miss. That's not a disability, sweetheart. That's a different kind of vision. I didn't fully understand what she meant then. I would eventually. But first I had to survive another 16 years of being the Chin family's embarrassing secret. Christmas 2020. 20 relatives gathered around the mahogany table in my parents' Beacon Hill townhouse. My father stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised. I'd like to make an announcement, he said. Victoria has been accepted to Yale Law School. Full scholarship. Applause. Cheers. Victoria blushed with practiced modesty. My eldest daughter will be the first Chin to attend Yale in 3 generations. Then his gaze drifted down the table. To me. And Sophia, he paused. The warmth in his voice evaporated. Well, Sophia is also here. A few relatives chuckled. Soft, uncomfortable laughs. Victoria didn't defend me. She laughed along with them. Under the table, a hand found mine. Thin fingers, papery skin. Grandma Margaret squeezed gently. When I looked up, her eyes held something fierce, something that looked almost like fury directed at her own son. She didn't say anything. Not then. But 3 months later, she called me to her apartment, said she needed to show me something important. I didn't know it at the time, but that Christmas dinner had set something in motion. After graduating from a state university in 2022, I applied for a position at Chin Development. I wanted to prove I could contribute. My father agreed to hire me as an administrative assistant. Salary, $39,000 a year. That same month, Victoria joined as chief legal counsel. Her salary, $265,000 plus bonuses. My job consisted of photocopying documents, booking conference rooms, and fetching coffee for executives who never learned my name. But I watched. And I listened. I discovered something about myself during those long hours in the copy room. I could spot patterns others missed. When executives discussed deals in the hallway, I'd sketch diagrams of the relationships between parties, the flow of money, the potential conflicts. Grandma Margaret had taught me this. During those Sunday afternoons at her apartment, she'd spread out old contracts from the company's early days and show me how to read them, not word by word, but as systems, as structures. Your father reads contracts like a lawyer, she told me once in 2019. He looks for what he can exploit. You read them like an architect. You see how all the pieces connect. That same day, she'd handed me a small wooden box, walnut, with brass hinges. "Keep this safe," she'd said. "Don't open it yet. When you need it, you'll know." March 2019. Grandma Margaret's apartment. She was 79 then, her once vigorous frame grown thin. But her eyes hadn't dimmed at all. "Sit down, Sophie." "I built Chin Development from nothing," she said. "One office, one secretary, 56 years of work. Your father inherited it. He didn't build it." She pressed the wooden box into my hands. "There's something inside that might help you someday. But not yet. You're not ready yet. And neither is Raymond." Her grip tightened. "When the time comes, when he shows you exactly who he is, you'll know what to do." 18 months later, she was gone. Pancreatic cancer. I held her hand in the hospice, the only family member at her bedside. The box remained unopened in my closet. April 2024. The email arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Subject line, "Position restructuring, confidential." "Dear Ms. Chin, as part of our ongoing organizational optimization, your current position will be eliminated effective July 1st, 2024. They were firing me. That evening, through the thin wall separating my cubicle from my father's office, I heard voices. "Raymond and Catherine. We can't have her here when Victoria takes over," my father was saying. "It looks bad." "What kind of questions?" my mother asked. "Why she's not in leadership. Why we haven't promoted her. Why she's the way she is." My mother's response came soft. "We done everything we could for her, Raymond. Some children just don't have what it takes." "Exactly. So she needs to go, $39,000 a year." My studio apartment in Somerville, shared with 2 roommates, cost $1,650 a month. If I lost this job, I'd be homeless within 2 months. Victoria's graduation party was tomorrow, May 15th, 2024. The Riverside Hotel, Grand Ballroom. 320 guests filled the gilded room. I stood in the entrance, tugging at the hem of my dress. Black, simple, $72 from Target. My mother intercepted me before I could find a seat. "Sophia, you'll be at table 24, near the service entrance. Try not to draw attention to yourself." Table 24 was at the back of the ballroom, partially hidden behind a pillar. And near the entrance, standing alone by the door, a silver-haired man in a gray suit. He wasn't mingling, wasn't eating, just watching. His eyes found mine across the crowded room. At 8:30 p.m., my father stood on stage, champagne flute raised. Victoria graduated top 5% of her Yale Law class. She completed a clerkship with Justice Morrison. And last month, she made partner track at Williams and Reed in record time. Raymond's voice swelled with pride. But tonight, I'm not just celebrating her achievements. I'm announcing her future. Victoria joined him on stage, radiant in emerald silk. Effective immediately, Victoria Chin will inherit my entire estate upon my passing. This includes our family residence at Commonwealth Avenue, currently valued at $11 million, and most importantly, the position of CEO of Chin Development when I retire. The room erupted. Standing ovation. 320 people celebrating, and not one of them glanced at table 24. And through the crowd, the silver-haired man at the door began walking toward me. The man stopped at my table. "Miss Chin." "That's me. My name is David Martinez." He pulled a business card from his breast pocket. "Anderson and Blake, attorneys at law. I was your grandmother's lawyer." From inside his jacket, he produced a cream envelope, heavy stock, sealed with red wax. "What is this?" "Her will. The real one." His voice dropped. "The one your father doesn't know exists." The notary seal read Anderson and Blake, September 8th, 2019. "I don't understand. Your grandmother gave me explicit instructions. I was to deliver this document on the day your father publicly disinherited you." Martinez glanced toward the stage. "I believe that just occurred." "Mr. Martinez, what's in here?" "Mrs. Margaret told me to tell you. Give this to Sophia on the day Raymond shows her exactly who he is. By then, she'll be ready." I couldn't breathe. I found an empty hallway near the kitchen. My fingers shook as I broke the wax seal. Inside, 3 pages of dense legal text, a notarized signature, a date, September 8th, 2019. I, Margaret Rose Chin, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous testamentary documents and declare this to be my last will and testament. My eyes caught on a paragraph near the middle. To my granddaughter, Sophia N. Chin, I bequeath 51% of my shares in Chin Development LLC, currently valued at approximately $45 million, along with all voting rights associated therewith. 51%. Controlling interest. This bequest is made with full knowledge of my son Raymond's treatment of Sophia. She has been excluded, diminished, and denied opportunity, not due to lack of ability, but due to lack of support. Sophia is not slow. Sophia was abandoned, and I will not allow her father's prejudice to continue after my death. A sob caught in my throat. Condition: to activate this bequest, Sophia must formally request an emergency board meeting within 72 hours of receiving this document. Failure to act within this window will render this will null and void. 72 hours. The deadline would fall at 8:30 p.m. on May 18th. David Martinez was waiting by the coat check when I emerged. You read it. The 72-hour clause. Why would she put that in? Your grandmother knew you, Miss Chin. She knew that if she gave you unlimited time, you might convince yourself not to act. The deadline isn't a punishment. It's permission. Permission to stop waiting for your family to change their minds about you. Through the ballroom doors, I could see my father still on stage, posing for photographs with Victoria. If I did this, I would destroy every relationship I had left. But if I stayed silent, I would become exactly what they'd always said I was: the failure, the slow one, the daughter who didn't matter. Miss Chin, your grandmother believed in you. She spent the last 3 years of her life preparing for this moment. The question is, do you believe in yourself? I looked at the will in my hands. I'll call you tomorrow. We're requesting that board meeting. Martinez allowed himself a small smile. She said you would. That night, I finally opened the wooden box. Inside, a handwritten letter on Margaret's personal stationery, a faded document with a 1968 date stamp, and a USB drive. I reached for the letter first. My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, then David has done his job, and your father has done exactly what I feared he would. The enclosed document is the original partnership agreement from 1968 when I founded Chin Development. Your father has never seen it. It establishes that the founder's shares carry permanent voting rights that cannot be diluted or transferred without board approval. The USB contains something else, something your father hoped I'd forgotten. In 2018, Raymond proposed a resolution to reduce my voting rights from 51% to 10%. His stated reason: I was too old to understand modern business. The board rejected his proposal by 2 votes. I was one of those votes. I never forgot what he tried to do, and I never forgave him for the way he treated you. Use this wisely, Sophia. Not for revenge. For justice. All my love, Grandma Margaret. I plugged the USB into my laptop. The file was labeled Board Meeting Minutes, March 2018.pdf. My father's attempt to strip his own mother of power. Documented. May 16th, 9 a.m. Elizabeth Warner answered on the second ring. Sophia Chin. I've been wondering when you'd call. You know who I am? Sweetheart, your grandmother and I built half of Cambridge together in the 70s. She talked about you constantly. She also told me about the will 3 years ago. Then you know what I'm about to do. You want to request an emergency board meeting? That requires 3 board members to sign the petition. I'm 1. You'll need 2 more. Can you help me find them? I can do better than that. Raymond Chin isn't as popular as he thinks. His management style is, let's call it, autocratic. At least 4 board members have expressed concerns privately. Who? Thomas Reed. Lisa Park. They've both been on the receiving end of Raymond's temper in closed sessions. I'll make some calls. Elizabeth, I need you to understand something. This isn't going to be pleasant. Your father will fight. Your sister will fight. They'll say terrible things. They've been saying terrible things my whole life. At least now I get to respond. Elizabeth laughed. Margaret always said you had steel under all that quiet. I'm starting to see what she meant. I'll have the petition ready by tonight. Board meeting request, May 18th, 10 a.m., Chin Tower, 38th floor. May 17th, Raymond found out about the board meeting at 4 p.m. I know this because Victoria called me 45 minutes later. What did you do? I was sitting in my cubicle, pretending to organize files. I don't know what you're talking about. Dad just got a notice from the board secretary. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Maybe they have concerns about company management. Don't play games with me, Sophia. She hung up. 20 minutes later, Raymond stormed past my cubicle. Through the wall, I heard him on the phone. Ridiculous waste of time. We'll address their concerns and move on. No, I'm not worried. Sophia? She can barely read a spreadsheet. She's not a threat to anyone. I smiled. For the first time in 28 years, being underestimated felt like an advantage. May 18th, 2024, 9:45 a.m. Chin Tower. The elevator opened onto the 38th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Italian marble. I stepped out in a borrowed gray blazer, carrying a leather portfolio I'd bought at Goodwill for $10. The security guard at the boardroom door held up his hand. Name? Sophia Chin. He checked his tablet, frowned. You're not on the authorized attendee list. Is there a problem? Victoria's voice behind me. Sophia? What are you doing here? I have information to present to the board. Information? You work in the copy room. Before she could respond, our father appeared. What's going on here? Sophia wants to attend the board meeting, Victoria said. Raymond looked at me the way he always did, like I was a stain he couldn't quite scrub out. Sophia, go back to your desk. This doesn't concern you. Actually, a voice called from inside the boardroom, it does. Elizabeth Warner appeared in the doorway. I invited her. She is standing to address the board. Let her in. The boardroom was smaller than I'd imagined. An oval table of polished walnut, 12 leather chairs, portraits of past executives on the walls, including my grandmother Margaret. 12 board members took their seats. Raymond at the head, Victoria to his right. I was directed to a chair at the far end. In the corner, David Martinez sat with his briefcase. He caught my eye, nodded once. Robert Hayes, the board chairman, called the meeting to order. This emergency session was requested by Elizabeth Warner, Thomas Reed, and Lisa Park. Elizabeth, you have the floor. Elizabeth rose. Thank you, Robert. The matter I wish to address concerns a document that has recently come to light, a document that affects the ownership structure of this company. I yield my time to Miss Sophia Chin. All eyes turned to me. Victoria smirked. Raymond leaned back with theatrical boredom. I stood. Thank you, Mrs. Warner. And thank you to the board for allowing me to speak. What I'm about to present may come as a surprise to some of you. I ask only that you listen to the evidence before reaching any conclusions. Before I could continue, my father raised his hand. I'm sorry, Robert, but before we waste the board's valuable time, I need to provide some context. Raymond, Elizabeth started. Sophia is my daughter, and I love her. But she's not qualified to address this board on any business matter. She works in an administrative role. She has no legal training, no financial background, no strategic experience. Victoria chimed in. Sophia also has dyslexia. She struggles with reading. We've tried to support her, but some limitations can't be overcome. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. What we're seeing here, Raymond continued, is a troubled young woman acting out, perhaps due to the announcement at Victoria's graduation party. Mr. Chin. Robert Hayes' voice cut through. You'll have an opportunity to respond, but Miss Chin requested this time, and she's entitled to use it. Raymond sat down. I looked at them both and felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Something colder. Clearer. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I pulled the document from my portfolio. I won't be discussing my reading ability today. I'll be discussing this. I held up the will. The room went silent. This is the last will and testament of Margaret Rose Chin, founder of this company, notarized September 8th, 2019. Raymond's face drained of color. That's impossible. My mother's will was executed in 2015. You have a copy of her previous will. Under Massachusetts law, a subsequent valid will automatically revokes all prior testamentary documents. I placed it on the table. Mr. Martinez, Would you please confirm the authenticity of this document? David approached the table. I'm David Martinez, partner at Anderson and Blake. I served as Margaret Chen's personal attorney from 2008 until her death in 2021. I can confirm this will was executed in my presence on September 8, 2019. It was witnessed by 2 independent notaries. Robert Hayes studied the document. His eyebrows rose. This will bequeaths 51% of Chen Development shares to, he looked up at me. To you, Miss Chen. Murmurs rippled around the table. That's a forgery, Victoria said. It's not. Martinez's response was immediate. And I'd advise you against making accusations of fraud without evidence. Raymond slammed his palm on the table. This is absurd. My mother was ill. She was being manipulated. Manipulated? I pulled out my phone. Perhaps you'd like to explain this then. I pressed play on the 2018 board meeting audio. My father's voice filled the room. Margaret is 79 years old. She doesn't understand modern business. I moved to reduce her voting rights to 10%. The recording ended. The silence that followed was absolute. Robert Hayes set down the will. Miss Chen, would you read the relevant passage aloud? For the record. I nodded. To my granddaughter, Sophia and Chen, I bequeath 51% of my shares in Chen Development LLC, along with all voting rights associated therewith. I paused. This bequest is made with full knowledge of my son Raymond's treatment of Sophia. She has been excluded, diminished, and denied opportunity, not due to lack of ability, but due to lack of support. I looked directly at my father. Sophia is not slow. Sophia was abandoned. And I will not allow her father's prejudice to continue after my death. I built this company from nothing. I choose who carries it forward. I choose Sophia. Robert Hayes removed his reading glasses. David, you can confirm this document is legally binding? I can. The 2015 will is superseded. As of this moment, Sophia Chen is the majority shareholder of Chen Development. This doesn't prove anything, Victoria said. Even if the will is valid, which we'll contest, Sophia has no business experience. I'm not asking to run the company. I'm asking you to examine the facts. I pulled the 2018 board minutes from my portfolio. March 14, 2018. Raymond Chen proposed Resolution 2018 to 2007 to reduce Margaret Chen's voting shares from 51% to 10%. That was taken out of context, Raymond said. The resolution failed by 2 votes. Margaret's vote and Elizabeth Warner's. Is that accurate? Elizabeth nodded. It is. Margaret called me that night. She was devastated. This is ancient history, Raymond started. It's evidence. Evidence that my grandmother wasn't suffering from diminished capacity when she wrote that 2019 will. She was protecting herself from her own son. And she was protecting me. Robert Hayes looked around the table. Does anyone else have documentation contradicting what's been presented? Silence. Raymond. My father's jaw worked. No words came. Thomas Reed spoke. Robert, I think we need to recess and have legal counsel review these documents. Agreed. We'll reconvene in 15 minutes. 45 minutes later, Patterson, the board's legal counsel, returned and whispered in Robert Hayes's ear. Please take your seats. The board members filed back. Our legal counsel has confirmed the following. The will presented by Miss Chen is valid under Massachusetts law. It supersedes all previous testamentary documents. Effective immediately, Sophia and Chen holds 51% of Chen Development shares. Additionally, as majority shareholder, Ms. Chen has the right to propose motions to the board, including matters pertaining to executive leadership. Ms. Chen, do you have any motions you wish to bring forward? I stood. I have one motion. Raymond rose from his seat. Robert, this is sit down, Raymond. Ms. Chen has the floor. Raymond sat. I looked around the table. I'm not proposing to remove Raymond Chen as CEO. The tension shifted. Victoria's head snapped up. Even Elizabeth looked surprised. What I am proposing is a vote of confidence. The board will decide whether Raymond Chen retains their confidence as CEO of Chen Development. If the majority votes no confidence, he resigns. If the majority votes confidence, I will not interfere with operational leadership. This is absurd. Victoria stood. You're turning this into a revenge fantasy. No, this is corporate governance. The same process that exists in every well-run company. If Dad has the board's confidence, he has nothing to worry about. Robert Hayes studied me for a long moment. Is there a second for this motion? Seconded. Elizabeth didn't hesitate. Then we'll vote. All those expressing confidence in Raymond Chin as CEO, raise your hands. For hands went up. All those expressing no confidence? 7 hands rose. The motion carries 7-4. Mr. Chin, the board has voted no confidence. Per our bylaws, you have 30 days to tender your resignation. Raymond said nothing. He stood, really looked at me, for what might have been the first time in my life. Then he walked out. Raymond caught me in the corridor outside the boardroom. Catherine was with him. You ungrateful, scheming Raymond. Catherine put a hand on his arm. Not here. I didn't destroy anything. I told the truth. The truth? Your grandmother was manipulated. Grandma Margaret wrote that 5 months after you tried to strip her of power. You didn't lose because I betrayed you. You lost because you betrayed her. Catherine stepped forward. Sophia, sweetheart, you have to understand. We were trying to protect you. You didn't protect me. You erased me. 20 years of silence crystallized into words. Every Christmas dinner, every family photo. That wasn't protection. That was abandonment. That's not fair. You're right. It wasn't fair. Raymond grabbed my arm. This isn't over. We'll contest that will. I pulled free. You'll lose. And you know it. I walked toward the elevator. May 19th, 2024. Raymond Chin signed his resignation letter at 4 p.m. I learned about it through an email from Robert Hayes. Miss Chin, your father has tendered his resignation effective June 15th, 2024. The board has appointed me as interim CEO while we conduct a search for permanent leadership. Additionally, the board has voted to offer you a formal position, strategic advisor to the board. Please let me know your thoughts. That evening, an all-staff email went out. Effective June 15th, Raymond Chin will step down as CEO. Robert Hayes will serve as interim CEO. Additionally, the board welcomes Sophia Chin as a strategic advisor in her capacity as majority shareholder. One message stood out from Patricia Lee, an executive assistant who'd started at the company in 1990, who'd worked directly with my grandmother. Sophia, Margaret used to talk about you constantly. She said you saw things others missed. I never understood what she meant until today. Welcome to the boardroom. She'd be so proud. 1 week later, the story went public. Boston Business Journal, Chen Development Shakeup, founder's granddaughter takes control after secret will surfaces. The article didn't name me directly, but anyone in Boston real estate circles knew. Raymond and Catherine canceled their appearance at the Symphony Gala. 3 investment partners requested meetings with me personally. 2 confirmed they'd continue their relationship with Chen Development. We've had concerns about Raymond's leadership for years, one admitted. Your grandmother built something special. It's good to see her vision protected. Elizabeth Warner called me on Saturday morning. How are you holding up? I don't know yet. Ask me in 6 months. Fair enough. Margaret would have handled it exactly the same way, you know. The vote of confidence instead of termination. She laughed softly. She always said mercy was the ultimate power move. June 8th, 2024. 3 weeks after the board meeting. My phone rang at 2 p.m. Sophia. My mother's voice sounded smaller than I'd ever heard it. Can we talk? Just us. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop in Cambridge. Neutral territory. Catherine was already there when I arrived. She looked older somehow. Thank you for coming. I know I don't deserve it. What do you want, Mom? To apologize. For everything. For the way we treated you. For the things we said. For the things we didn't say. Are you apologizing because you're sorry or because everything changed? She flinched. Both, she finally admitted. I'm ashamed to say it, but both. I was so focused on Victoria's success, on maintaining appearances. I told myself we were protecting you. But that was a lie. You let Dad call me worthless in front of family. You never defended me. Not once. I know, and I can never undo it. But Sophia, I don't want to lose you entirely. I looked at this woman who'd been my mother for 28 years. I can't pretend the last 20 years didn't happen, but I'm willing to try building something new, something honest. She nodded, unable to speak. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. August 2024. Victoria called while I was walking through Boston Common. Sophia, I know I have no right to ask, but can we meet? We sat on a bench near the fountain. Victoria looked different. The armor of perfection had cracked. I've been in therapy. Since May. 3 times a week. That's good. It's brutal. Turns out being the golden child isn't actually a gift. It's a different kind of cage. I waited. Dad expected me to be perfect. Every grade, every achievement was never enough. The way they treated you, I told myself it was just how things were. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. What do you want from me, Victoria? Nothing. I don't deserve anything. I just wanted you to know I see you now. Really see you. And I'm sorry I didn't look sooner. I can't go back to how things were. But I'm not interested in staying enemies either. Maybe we start over. From scratch. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that. November 2024. 6 months after the board meeting. I moved into my own apartment in the North End. 1 bedroom, pre-war building, a view of the harbor my grandmother had walked past to her first office in 1968. The rent was more than I'd ever paid, but I could afford it now. My new salary as Director of Sustainable Development at Chen Development, $178,000 a year, plus dividends from my shares. The title was my idea, a new division focused on green building practices, sustainable real estate. The kind of innovation my grandmother would have championed. Raymond called once a month now. Short conversations. Polite. We both pretended the past hadn't happened. Catherine and I had lunch every other week. Slowly, awkwardly, she was learning to see me as a person instead of a problem. Victoria and I got coffee on weekends sometimes. We were learning each other for the first time. Neither of us pretended the past was okay, but we were writing a new story. On the wall of my apartment, I'd hung my grandmother's portrait, the same one that had watched over the boardroom for decades. You did it, Grandma. 6 months ago, I was invisible. Now, I was finally fully myself. Looking back, I understand something now. My grandmother didn't leave me 51% of her company because I was better than Victoria. She left it to me because she knew I wouldn't let power corrupt me the way it had corrupted my father. Dyslexia isn't my flaw. It's part of who I am, like my visual memory, my patience, my ability to see patterns others miss. Raymond judged worth by credentials, by degrees. Margaret judged worth by character, by kindness. And now I get to judge my own worth. Not by what my parents say, by my own standard. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you've ever been the overlooked one, the dismissed one, I want you to know something. You don't need a secret inheritance to prove your value. But you do need to give yourself permission to stop seeking approval from people who will never give it. My family hurt me for 28 years, but I didn't need to hurt them back to find peace. I just needed to stop waiting for them to see me and start seeing myself. That's the real inheritance my grandmother left me. And nobody can ever take it away. If this story meant something to you, subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment.